Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings.
All right. Feels like more than a month since we've done a show. Probably has been, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Busy schedules. We've had CBC. We've had trips overseas. All kinds of things.
Yep. You were at CBC, right? And you're going to be at the Homebrewers conference this year too.
I'll be there in Baltimore.
Yep. I unfortunately did not get to do CBC, and I won't be there for the Homebrewers conference because I got to pick up my daughter from school. She's graduating college, and I'm going to go pick her up and watch her graduate and all that stuff. And so that
is a milestone.
One of the few things I would skip the Homebrewers conference for is my daughter graduating. So I'm looking forward to that.
Perfectly understandable.
I remember when I was on the governing committee. And they would always talk about the date of the thing, and they were trying to move around, and everyone just always complained about it. So it's like, look, this is when like kids are graduating. This is like the end of school, and it's like, can you move the conference away from that? And they're always just like, no, that's when we can do it. No. So they still never have, I guess. I'm like, and now it's come to bite me in the butt.
Yeah,
I cannot go. That's all right. I'm sure everyone will drink plenty of beer for me.
Indeed.
See how the Huda checks are doing. Go up and give Blickman a wet willy. I'm sure.
I'll be sure to do that.
I'm sure he will be there. John, the Blickman engineering team will be there in full force. They'll have all sorts of fancy, shiny stuff there. And he's been our longtime sponsor and just so wonderful that it'll be very cool to at least you get to see them. Now, are they going to have new secret, special, top secret surprises in store for everybody at the conference, John?
They will indeed. In fact, I was just brewing with Blickman last weekend.
Yeah?
Yeah. I was out in Indianapolis, or Lafayette, there in Indiana for a couple of days, and we did a couple batches together. So got to talk about new and upcoming stuff, which is Hush Hush. And
coffee, brownies, beer?
Beer, lots of beer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Lots of secret stuff coming out of the Blickman camp. Yes, blickmanengineering.com. They're always innovating your homebrew day, coming up with all sorts of clever and nifty pieces of gear that help make your day a better brew day. And you can check them out at blickmanengineering.com. That's Blickman with a B, engineering with an E, and .com with a dot. Check them out today. Our fine sponsor, paying for this show so you don't have to. It'd be good to see Blickman. Unfortunately, I won't. I don't know. Do you any idea when the next conference is after the next Homebrewers conference? Where that one's going to be?
They haven't announced the location yet, but I assume it's going to be in the same general time period.
It's leaked,
as you say.
It is leaked. I'm sure somebody knows the location.
Yeah.
Some of our astute listeners have found out the leak. Well, hopefully I'll make it to that one. We'll see.
Yeah.
You were on the road. Didn't you go to Brazil, or where'd you go?
Yeah, I was in Brazil this last time, down in Florianopolis at their third technical conference, or congress as they called it. And really good time. About 160 people there. Toured several local breweries. My good friend Ronaldo is opening his own brewery, La Brucha, and then forget the other, and Unica, and then their homebrew club opened a brewery as well called Armada. So the beer scene around Florianopolis is really thriving.
Very cool. And you've been down there multiple times, yeah?
Yeah, that was my second time to that Congress and my third trip to Brazil overall.
How long a flight is it? Now, you leave out of LAX. How long does it take you to get to Florianopolis?
It's about 15, 16 hours all told.
Yeah.
This time I changed planes in Panama City and Sao Paulo. And I tell you, Panama City is swank. I mean, that's like going to, the Roseville Mall or, big mall.
Yeah.
And that happens to have an airport right tucked inside.
In the mall.
Yeah, in the mall.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's my kind of mall with an airport in it.
Yeah.
Well, you and I are going to Singapore.
Yeah.
And we've got you booked through, I want to say, Taipei? Taiwan?
Yep. I believe so. That was Taipei.
Somewhere? Because I read that the airport in the Philippines, there's a lot of dishonest security people that would drop bullets into your luggage and then ask you for money.
Oh, wow. That's not
I'm like, oh, John will definitely end up in a Filipino prison. And that'll just screw the whole thing up. I better put him through Taipei.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
really looking forward to that.
I am too. That's in August. We're going to speak at the Homebrewers conference there in Singapore. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm sure it'll be a great time. They've been carrying our beer there in Singapore for a while, and I've seen some great events. I've taken part in some online stuff with them as well, and seems like a lot of fun. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
Good brewing crowd there. I've been corresponding with a brewer in Singapore that's been asking about water adjustment and so on, and looks like they're right on par with the rest of us.
I went out to Sweden. Just recently, I went and spoke at their craft brewers conference there in Malmö, Sweden, which is the second biggest city in Sweden. I think there's only really two big cities in Sweden. There's Stockholm and there's Malmö. Malmö apparently is their crime-ridden city, which I didn't see any crime, so that'll tell you.
Comparatively, maybe.
Yeah, but I loved it. I absolutely adored Sweden. It was wonderful. The people were wonderful. Wonderful place. I got out there and I did a collaboration brew with Thomas at Malmö Brewing. And normally I don't like doing any collaborations with people I don't personally know and have tasted their beer and all that. But I had met him once and then also tasty vouched for him. And a lot of people were saying his beer was really good. I'm like, all right, I'll go out on a little bit of a limb here. And got out there. I tell you, tasted all their beers. Fantastic. Great brewer. Really knows what he's doing. And then it was just wonderful. The people were just so nice. I met some really great people there. Had a great time, and I was very impressed with their sensory ability. At least Thomas and his crowd, those people I was hanging out with, I'm like, man, these people really, they know what they're talking about. So I had a good time doing that, and then did the keynote speech at the conference. Enjoyed that. A lot of good information at the conference. It was their first one. They're going to do it again. I tell you, if I had a chance to go again, I would go again.
Yeah.
And then I did the Malmö Beer and Whiskey Festival. So the guys, Magnus and Don Magnus from Brewhouse 19, they very kindly, they were the ones who set up the conference, and they flew some of the Heretic beer out there to go at Beer and Whiskey Fest, and they cleared a space at their booth for us and poured our beers for us, and were just super wonderful. I have not been, treated that kindly in a long, long time. Those guys were so wonderful and so generous with their time and their space. I was blown away. I really thought that they were just awesome.
Yeah, I got the same reception in Norway, and it truly.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like I always say, brewers are brewers the world over. I mean, they're always nice people.
No, yeah, they're all overweight, beards. Yeah. I went. Well, from there, I went out to the UK, met up with my friend Travis, and we did like a solid week of events, just endless. Got in on Sunday, met up with a homebrewer Sunday night. Monday, we did a collab with Sam Brooks, which is one of my favorite breweries in England. They do a lot of great classic English ales and some great American styles as well. And they actually do an open fermentation.
Oh, okay.
And we did an American brown with them. And our good friend Sean, he actually showed up at like a bunch of our events, made the effort to come out to a bunch of the events and support us, and took us around to places, and he just had a wonderful time. Love that guy. Sean Knight at Sam Brooks, just really super wonderful guy. He's actually South African, and he's the head brewer there, and they make great beer. And then Tuesday we went to Fuller's, and I signed up, regular old paid tour, but one of the brewers we met there, he turned out he has read the Yeast book, and super nice guy. He actually were able to meet up with him and another guy, Peter from Sweden, that came out to stayed at our house, and we had the wonderful American tour of IHOP and In-N-Out and some beer places, and had a great time. And so we got the private tour of Fuller's, and then we did a collab with Beavertown, which is another one of my absolute favorite breweries in England. And those folks are just spectacular. Logan is just so charming and nice and generous. We had a great time there. We did a peach wit that they're calling a Peacher Man, which is really, I think, a cool name for this peach wit.
Yeah.
And then we did, what else did we do? We did a beer tasting at We Brought Beer, and we did a homebrew night where there was a bunch of homebrewing going on at London Beer Lab. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I've got the names right. Everything's fading. And then and there was a lot of beer involved. And then we did a collab with Mondo Brewing, another great brewery in England. Another bunch of excellent beers. I actually met them in Japan, and it's all just kind of a small world. But we we did a collaboration there with a kind of a West Coast IPA. They did the malt bill, I did the hop bill, and they did they also had our beers on, and they had like 5 or 6 of our beers on. And I'll tell you, we did a little like tap takeover. Place was packed. I mean, it was like the brewery was full, the tasting room was full, there were people like out on the street. It was crazy. It was just insane. A lot of fun. And then, Beavertown put on the Buffalo Badger from Sam Brooks, their Peacher Man, and then the Global Heresy from Mondo, all in a release pint night thing with the 3 collabs there at Beavertown. I thought that was totally cool too.
Yeah,
and that's after we got back, and then we went to York. And we met up with Peter Simons. He met us out there. Travis and I went around, hit all the bars, did lots of drinking. And then we went to Peter drove. He was visiting his sister, so he had a car. And he drove us down to Thomas Fawcett's. And we went to Thomas Fawcett's. And James Fawcett himself took 4 hours out of his day to walk us around the entire maltings and go out, and I walked out on the beds of malting grain and picked them up and was examining them there with James Fawcett, and he was teaching me about some of the stuff there. We went through the kilning and just everything. Absolutely fantastic, detailed. Here's how everything works. Here's the more modern technology. Here's the floor maltings. We got to see him do all the floor malting stuff. We got to see how they steep it, everything. And after that, he took us out to lunch in his local pub, which was also fantastic. Bought us lunch, bought us beers. I mean, how nice a guy is that? I mean, he would spend over 4 hours of his day, his busy day, to take some schlub like me and Travis and Peter around. And I was just stunned. It is one of the great life experiences was seeing the maltings at Thomas Fawcett. I was just thoroughly impressed.
That sounds really nice, yeah.
That was incredible. All thanks to James Fawcett at Thomas Fawcett Maltings. I thought it was very cool. Very, very cool. All right. Well, that's kind of the travel recap. I think we could do a whole show on traveling.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, the rest of this show is going to be about kind of the history of fermentation and fermenters and fermenter designs and things like that. Kind of old to modern and some of the impacts that's had on fermentation, the way we do things. And I think it's a real interesting subject, and reminded me, of some of the things I saw at like Fuller's and some of the other breweries that we were at. It was very cool to see some of that old gear. So we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll get into the history of fermentation right after this.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on two gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller, and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. See it today at BlickmanEngineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy. Since the first time the Brewing Network microphones turned on, More Beer was behind it. More Beer sponsors the programming on the BN because, like you, they love brewing. And like the Brewing Network, they love sharing their knowledge. Morebeer.com isn't just a website to place your next equipment or ingredient order. Morebeer.com also gives you access to free beer information that will make you a better brewer. Go to morebeer.com and click into the Learning Center. You'll find podcasts, technical facts, video tutorials, and more, including access to The Buzz, More Beer's social network of more than 5,000 members. And some of them might even be crazier about beer than you are. Get over to morebeer.com today and take advantage of The Buzz, the forum, the Learning Center, and make sure you're signed up to receive the newest More Beer catalog. More Beer, bringing you absolutely everything for beer making. When I order a beer, I want my server to know more about it than I do. I want someone who enjoys good beer and loves helping others enjoy it too. I want someone who knows how to pour a perfect pint for every beer style. I want a Cicerone.
The Cicerone Certification Program is creating the type of people who help you enjoy great beer. Home brewers and craft beer lovers know beer is more flavorful and complex than ever, and it takes some serious knowledge to store and serve beer right. Cicerones know beer. There are 3 levels in the Cicerone program: Certified Beer Server, Certified Cicerone, and Master Cicerone. Cicerones are truly the sommeliers of beer. The best beer locations have a Certified Cicerone on staff. Relaxed and unpretentious, Cicerones microphones are tested on storing and serving beer, beer styles, flavor and tasting, the brewing process and ingredients, and pairing food with beer. Learn more about your next beer guide at Cicerone.org. Certified Cicerone, because it takes top talent to present a perfect pint.
21st Amendment.
Watch out!
Do you like beer? They make beer.
Watch out!
Do you like friends and fun? They make friends and fun.
Watch out!
Do you still like to have a good time? The 21st Amendment.
Watch out!
The 21st Amendment in San Francisco, located at 563 2nd Street, 2 blocks from the building where baseball is seen and played. Try their beers in the pub or try them in the can, featuring
Monk's Blood.
Made with real monk.
Watch out!
So why not have the best time of your life? Go to the 21A and Sean O'Sullivan will personally greet you with a can of
Monk's Blood. The 21st Amendment.
Watch out!
This advertisement is not in any way affiliated nor associated with the 21st Amendment Bar and Pub, nor its subsidiaries or affiliates. This telecast is not copywritten by the 21st Amendment for the private use of the Brewing Network. Any use of this telecast without Jamil Zainashev's consent is prohibited. Suck it, JP.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're talking kind of history of fermentation or fermenters. John, tell us about. I'm sure initial fermentation was in whatever, like a crotch of a tree, and then it was, whatever clay pot or whatever the
clay pots,
Egyptians
baskets.
were using. Baskets, yeah. A watertight basket weaving is quite the skill.
Yeah,
we will need that for the zombie apocalypse.
I think especially dawn of history kind of thing. They were using. Any open container, whether it was a hollowed out log or, stone. In fact, I remember when my son and I were going through Pompeii, there was in the ruins, there would be in front of one of the buildings, there were 2 circular, cylindrical holes in soft rock. That the tour guide said were actually this was a wine cellar. The wine was put in these rock cisterns and sold there to passersby. So they were using a variety of.
So they were serving it right out of the rock.
Yeah.
Or they put a.
Well, they had their pottery, of course, but they would pour it in and then ladle it out to people. It's a convenient way of serving, showing it off and serving it, I guess. But there's they had clay pots. They had a variety of essentially open containers. As you get closer to more recent history, the Industrial Revolution and so on, copper kettles for boiling were relatively common. Hammered copper, soldered together and riveted together.
Why didn't they ferment in copper?
Well, the problem with copper and a lot of other easy to work metals like that is that they act as catalysts to oxidation. So it's okay to boil in them. In fact, the presence of copper ions is very good at reducing the amount of sulfide in the beer. But once the beer is fermented, if you try to ferment in copper or iron or other similar metals, then you will catalyze the oxidation of the beer. So, for fermentation, they needed something different. Very often they use wooden casks, like fooders or very large wooden tanks, and then these would be lined sometimes with pitch. Or wax, or more recently epoxy. And I guess as you get closer to the 1800s, early 1900s, concrete tanks were popular. There was a lot of the Anheuser-Busch fermenters were concrete tanks that were lined with epoxy.
Interesting, because concrete, that's been around since the Romans, right?
Right, yeah. So they had a lot of options, but very often these were just, open fermenters, and, that allowed the easy harvesting of the yeast, and it worked, so why question it, kind of thing.
Right. Well, I'm sure, the fundamental thing you want in a fermenter, at least, today, is you want something that's going to hold liquid reliably, not going to lose its load all over the place, right?
Right.
You want something that does not impart flavors necessarily, flavors from the material it's being fermented in.
Right.
So you don't want to put it in like a, I don't know, something that's going to leach out, some unwanted, some kind of plastic that's going to put all these plasticizers into your beer and taste,
true, yeah.
Like, chewing a bunch of Band-Aids or something.
Like a sheep bladder or something.
Right, and then exactly. And then you want something that is easy to clean. I guess back then that was probably, one of the general things that they were looking for was cleanability, not necessarily that they realized there was bacteria and things like that there. They were just looking for, just general knocking the funk down. Yeah. Right? And then, a lot of these liners, I would imagine if you were fermenting in concrete, it would consume the concrete pretty quickly. Yeah,
that's not a very durable material, as it's, very subject to acid,
right?
Including, organic acids, yeah. So, those were often either, pitch, wax, or lined, or epoxy lined. Whereas other, natural stone materials such as slate could be used as is. And, you mentioned you went to Yorkshire. Did you see some of the Yorkshire squares in those breweries, or? Yeah,
and so they're around. Different breweries still kind of like have some of them. Open square fermenters. Like I said, I went to Sandbrooks, and it's kind of like unitanks or some dish bottom tanks, and then the top of them is open. It's just like it got a piece of sheet stainless in a circle that's got a hinge on a piano hinge, and that's it. And it doesn't like lay 100% flat. It's it's like you can you could probably stick a pinky finger underneath it, in places.
We went to a tour at Anchor, and they still have open fermentation.
Yes, Anchor does, and that's those are stainless, and they're those are rectangles now. It's a little more advanced shape.
They're shallow though,
right?
Very shallow.
And they're in a room with a controlled environment, stuff, right? Yeah. The air is filtered, so. If you go to Sandbrooks, and the roll-up door's open, and it's just natural environment out there, but it's really the fermentation that protects the beer. So when beer's fermenting, the blow off of the CO2, all that keeps things from getting to the beer, and then as it slows down, there's a Croissant on top. And that layer of yeast on top is protecting it, and so as the beer is finished, that still sits there. Things can land on it. You can scrape it off and throw it away.
Right.
You can harvest your yeast off the top of there. They actually top crop their yeast into buckets and use that for their next pitch. And then if you can take the beer out from underneath what's left, then you don't have to worry about any sort of contamination or things like that. They're pretty fascinating. At Fuller's, they've switched over to unitanks.
Okay.
But they still have some of the old square fermenters still sitting there that were in use, and they just haven't done anything with them. They're just,
they're probably kind of built in place, I imagine. Not terribly movable.
Right. It's not like they're on wheels or something. One of the things I really wanted to see out in Yorkshire, I did not get a chance to do, is there's still a brewery using the double drop system, which is essentially a fermenter above, a tank, like a unitank above, and then the square fermenter below. And so initially you pump your wort up into the tank above, and that's where your fermentation starts. And at a certain point in the process, you drop that beer down into the open square below, and it stirs it up. It introduces more oxygen. It remixes the yeast, and you don't drop it all like immediately, but you drop it with a pretty good clip that kind of stirs it up.
Yeah.
And so I think that's fascinating. And one of the things I want to do is someday I want to have like a double drop system. I want to have Burton Union. I want to have like all these funky things, maybe some the holes in the rock. I don't know. And just have all of these different kind of fermentation devices and setups, and brew beer on those. And I think that would
side by side, yeah,
so cool. And I don't think many people would really get as much of a kick out of it as we would, but
right.
I think that's just so fascinating to me. All the types of fermentation. I was talking to Henry at Fuller's, and he started out. He worked at Harvey's in south of England, which is a great brewery, makes some incredible beers. And he was saying it's just like it was 500 years ago. It's the same.
Wow.
It's like everything was so manual, and I mean, he was just describing to me all the processes and the way they do things there. And it's just like nothing's changed. They haven't changed a darn thing, and it's really, really cool. Anyways, it kind of got sidetracked on that. But, so the Yorkshire Squares, there's lots of, I think there are also people that are doing, so they'll call them like Yorkshire Rounds. I think it's just, open top, round fermenter. And so all this time doing open top fermentation, I mean, really, was anybody doing any closed fermentation all this time? I mean, lids were generally loose fitting. And the reason they would do that is because if you tried to ferment in something that was sealed, it would explode. It would break apart, right? So if you tried to ferment in a sealed barrel, that would just leak out the sides and blow out the ends or whatever. So that's why everything was open with maybe a loose lid thrown on top to keep bird crap out and rats from climbing in or something, right?
Right.
So what changed, and what impact has that had on fermentation? Well,
it's interesting when you look at a lot of the historical brewing records and some of the books from the 1800s, 1700s, 1800s. They really do talk about primary and secondary fermentation. The primary fermentation being the open fermentation, and then the secondary fermentation being the maturation in a cask. And so they would go through the open fermentation, for 5-6 days or so, harvesting their yeast and such. And then they would transfer that beer to a closed cask for maturation. And those barrels would then, generally be stored cool. In some cases, the barrels would be primed. You would have your cask ale, your real ale kind of thing going on there, where the beer is allowed to carbonate inside a closed cask. And you see that same practice both in the UK and in Germany, across Europe. That the kind of the secondary fermentation in some sort of secondary cask or barrel that was essentially closed off to the atmosphere, to reduce the amount of oxygen that would reach the beer and to allow, carbonation. Of course, and bottles, of course, were fully in use. Some of the beer would be directly bottled, and familiar with that from Belgium and so on. So you had all these different packaging things, but essentially they didn't have as good a understanding of microorganisms, the yeast, the bacteria. And so they knew that once they packaged the beer, put the beer in these casks or bottles, that generally the beer would last longer if it was kept cool. Mm-hmm. Retarding oxidation, retarding bacterial growth. And so that resulted in kind of our understanding of lagering, a long, slow maturation kind of thing. And it's interesting. Some of the first innovations in material happened towards the end of the 1800s, around 1875. Some of the first stainless steels were created by individuals that noted their stain resistance, their manufacturability. You could draw them, you could harden them, and there's a couple different martensitic, ferritic, and austenitic stainless steels that were discovered from about 1875 right up until about 1910. Mm-hmm. And in 1911 and 1913, you had a martensitic stainless invented by an Englishman and two austenitic stainlesses invented by Germans that were patented and, started being used commercially. But it wasn't until around 1925, I believe, that they started actually make stainless steel sheet and stainless steel tanks. And this, of course, is after World War I. So it's interesting to realize that throughout history, you're kind of leading up to the 20th century and an innovation in materials that has predicated a change in the way that we ferment our beer.
All right. Hold on to that next thought.
Yep.
We're taking a short break first. I wanted to mention our good friends at Lamont.
Yes.
I use at Heretic a Lamont water test kit. That's what we use as the professional version, which is essentially the same as the homebrewer version, but larger quantities, maybe a few more tests, and we use it constantly. That's what we do all our water testing on. We used to send our water out. No more. We just use Lamont, and we're very happy with it. As a brewery, I think you need to be checking your water. Maybe you don't want to make huge changes to your water, but you need to know what's going on with your water because your water changes throughout the course of the year in a lot of places. Some places might be pretty steady, but where we're at, where there's conditions of drought, conditions of plentiful rain, and there's rivers and all that stuff, our water changes constantly throughout the year. So it's important to be able to test that water, and we do it at Heretic with a Lamont water test kit. So if you're looking for water testing, if you want to really know about your water, I get a lot of people going, I want to change my water. How do I change my water? And they'll go through the expense of doing RO water, which is essentially throwing half your water down the drain, and the cost of membranes and all that, or they'll buy RO water to start when they could just get themselves a Lamont test kit, and then they'd know exactly what their water was at any given time, and then they could just adjust from there. Mm-hmm. Instead of they're stripping the water out, minerals out, and then they're adding minerals back in, and they're paying for it twice. I don't know. So I'm a big fan of the Lamont test kit. I think it's good stuff for breweries. I'm really pleased. So check them out. Lamont. It's spelled with an L, an A, an M, an O, a couple of T's, an E, something like that.
Yeah. That's the Brew Lab and the Brew Lab Plus and the Brew Lab Pro.
There you go. Good job, John.
Thank you.
I could not remember what the names of those were.
Glad to help.
We use it. I just, they don't have it printed all over the box.
Wonderful, right?
That's right. All right. Let's take a short break. When we come back, more with how stainless changed our brewing after this.
A few things happened 30 years ago.
Our
ARPANET migrated to TCP/IP, and the Internet was born. Revenge of the Jedi was renamed Return of the Jedi and opened in theaters. Mila Kunis and Emily Blunt were born, beginning a rad fantasy in my mind.
But all of that pales next to the fact that HopTech opened its doors and began blowing homebrewers right out of their mash tuns. HopTech doesn't fuck around. Real people shipping awesome shit straight to you. Their new website is fast and easy to navigate. Or just call 800-379-4677 and let badass bitch Jade and the gadget guy Roberto blow their warm load of customer service all over you. So visit the site or visit the store in Dublin, California, and support those that support you. Get your brewing on at hoptech.com.
Hey, my brewing brothers and sisters. This is Jamel Zainasheff, and I want to tell you about Heretic Evil Twin. You might be familiar with my homebrew recipe, which uses massive late hopping to create a balance between the malty sweet and the hoppy bitter, along with an outrageous malt and hop character. I wanted a beer with the same bold hop and malt character, so we played around with the homebrew recipe until we were able to make a great commercial version too. We've created a beer rich in malt character, full of caramel, toast, biscuit, and an ever so subtle roast note. On top of that, we piled in an insane amount of Citra and Columbus hops at the end of the boil, as well as in dry hopping. This damn-the-cost approach to hopping gives Heretic's Evil Twin a great blast of citrus and tropical fruit that can't be matched by any other hop. The result is a bold, malty, hoppy, but easy-drinking beer. This is our top seller, our flagship beer, and I couldn't be prouder of it. Cheers.
To find Heretic beers near you, click on Find Some at hereticbrewing.com. Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and the freshest ingredients, backed by the best customer service in the business. Do you like to mash using efficient fly sparging, but would like an easy way to heat your strike and sparge water? Enter the new Brewer's Edge electric mash water heater, a plug-in, anywhere, precisely controlled heater for strike and sparge water. Ditch the fumes and second burner and make mashing easy. Go to williamsbrewing.com today and browse their vast selection. That's williamsbrewing.com. Orders placed by 4 p.m. Pacific Time weekdays ship the same day. Brewing is easy the Williams way.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, correct.
What were we talking about?
You were waxing eloquent about stainless. I could hear the glimmer in your eye.
Yes, always a warm spot.
Speaking of warm spots. Yeah, have you checked out our fine sponsor, Adam and Eve?
I haven't seen that much stainless there, but some of the pictures are nice.
Right. Well, are you getting enough? I bet you'd love to get more, right? Well, at adamandeve.com wants to give you more. They're going to give you 10 free gifts.
And for less money, too.
That's right. You're going to use the offer code Jamil, Jamil. You're going to get a free sexy surprise for her, a second specially selected toy for him, and third, a little something we know you'll both enjoy. I guess we now know that this is the clit bumper.
The clit bumper.
Clit bumper. Oh, now John gets it. I'm not sure really what that is, but apparently they're including it. Plus, you get 6 free full-length adult DVDs and adult movies on DVD and free shipping. So you get the sexy surprise for her, the surprise for him, the clit bumper, and you get the 6 free full-length adult movies on DVD and free shipping. All for using the offer code Jamil, Jamil, at checkout. Get your 10 free gifts today, adamandeve.com. All right, so speaking of that warm, moist spot in your eye, it's all about stainless. So how did the introduction of stainless or the invention of stainless sheet stainless affect this fermentation? How has fermentation changed? What exactly are we doing differently now?
Well, stainless steel, the fact that you could form it into a tank that had, better structural rigidity, higher strength than, a thinner wall section than, say, wood and concrete, easier to clean, all those things, allowed them to make closed fermentation tanks, tanks that could, withstand pressure. Of course, this is, right at the end. This is after the age of steam. So they had a much better understanding of pressure gauges, pressure relief valves. They could use steam jackets on stainless steel for heating. There was a real sea change in technology around this time.
Well, and also, they were taking into account the work of Pasteur and all the work done out in Carlsberg and all that for yeast, and so they knew that if you Pasteur showed that you could seal off or occlude something from letting dust just land in it, and it would stay fresh for essentially forever. Right. Yeah. They were beginning to understand anaerobic fermentation versus aerobic. And as you say, pasteurization and, shielding from microorganisms. So going to stainless steel tanks allowed for larger but yet stronger tanks that could hold more. They could make them taller and take up less floor space. That increased production. There was also, what was it where I was going with that? Lost that train. Steamed off into the distance. But yeah, there was a real change in, I guess, in terms of what stainless steel allowed them to do. Cylindrical conical tanks were also invented, around the 1940s, 50s, somewhere in there. And so cylindrical conical tanks came into use during the 20th century. And that allowed, yeast to be dropped. That allowed maturation to occur within the same tank. You had jacketed tanks appear on the scene. There's just, a real technology change from, the porter tanks of London, of the 17 and 1800s, where one burst and, drowned 100 people or so. Now to stainless steel, active temperature control. Just a whole host of technology changes as a result of this material change. And that affects the way that we can control our fermentations. So now I think what we're seeing, throughout the 20th century now into the 21st is before, the majority of everything was open fermentation. Now we're seeing a majority of beer brewed with closed fermentation, although open fermentation is still, it's not uncommon. Well, and it's interesting, the changes in the beer and the changes in the yeast when you go from open to closed fermentation or vice versa. I know that a number of breweries have transitioned from one to the other, and their yeast that was always a top cropping yeast once switched to closed fermentation, and the yeast very quickly ended up no longer a top cropping yeast, and they would harvest off the bottom. And you would think that you'd think that's fundamentally how does that change so quickly, but it does. And I guess the yeast will also once you start top cropping it, it'll tend to become a top cropper. Yeah, yeasts are extremely adaptable that way. Of course, when you change, you change them from top cropping to bottom cropping, and you change essentially, the amount of oxygen they get, and that affects the way they synthesize their sterols, the way they, the fatty acids they consume, and so on. You do change the character of the beer, and very often the brewer has to, step up and take hold of the reins and
and start manipulating the rest of the brewing process to accommodate those changes in flavor of the beer as a result of that change in the fermentation. It could be recipe change. It could be, pitching rates. It could be several levers he has available to him to manage that.
What's fascinating to me is when we were doing the Can You Brew It show, we were given the recipe and the fermentation parameters of London Pride. And Chad was brewing it, and it wasn't until he stuck to the fermentation parameters, and it wasn't until he used the same maltster that we really got a beer that was very, very close to London Pride. It's interesting because their fermentation profile has got these. I don't recall what it is offhand, but it's got these odd, temperatures going up from 17C or 16C to 18, and then it goes to 20, and then it goes down to 2, and then it goes back up to 6, and then it goes to 3. It's got like all these bizarre changes in temperature that. And I think they refer to it, I could be wrong here, but I think they refer to it as their diacetyl rest or something, is like this crashing of the temperature.
That's strange.
And really it's something that retains the diacetyl, if you ask me, because, I mean, it's kind of the opposite of what you would do. But it's still in the archives if somebody wants to go back and listen to it. I haven't listened to it for a while, so maybe I'm messing it up. But I know that they do this for like a maturation period, and they kind of mess around with it. And if you have Pride there in London, it's got a lot going on in it. We actually we brewed a bitter here at Heretic, and then we had sent some kegs of it over to England so people could try it, which is just, it's like, it's like, practicing your toy flute and then going and hanging out with your friends at the Philharmonic and going, let me sit in for a few. Right? And so, ours is just way too clean. And if you have those beers over there, it's got a little bit of diacetyl, it's got a little bit of this, got a little bit of that, little acetaldehyde, a little bit of funky stuff going on here and there. That's not creating this unpleasant experience. It's actually just adding just these background hints of character and interesting notes and these esters and funky bits to the beer that
a real melange,
really fills out that character. It makes it an interesting, a characterful beer. Even with a small beer that's maybe 3.5%, you're getting all this character with it too. So I think that's a big part of it as well. Like you're saying, the brewer has these controls that they're manipulating, and a lot of them are time, temperature, pitching rates, nutrients, open and close for better, all this stuff, yeast strain especially, all kind of determines what kind of result they're going to get out of a given tank. Now, the people at Fuller's, they've shifted away from the squares to this, unit tanks, but yet they're still making something that, a lot of people will poo-poo it about, oh, no, it's not the same, but
it's still an interesting beer.
Yeah, it's still quite a spectacular beer.
Yeah, fermentation. I mean, it's fascinating, ongoing technology, and it'd be interesting to see if the pendulum swings back a little bit. Going forward, going back to more open fermentation. As people may decide they like those characters more.
Right. Well, and with a lot of what's going on now, I think people are looking at how things are made, where they're made, the nature of how things are made. People are going back to handmade stuff. They like that, and I think that's one of the aspects that a lot of this. That's why I think all this fermentation technology is really cool. And I don't want to see it die. I don't want to see it go away. So if I got to do it myself, I'll do it myself. Maybe I could buy some of those old, fermentation pieces from England and just get them shipped over here. That's the thing to do. That's what I need to do. Not build my own. I need to go and get them.
Get the real things. Yeah,
that's right. And I'll save them. I'll use them here. I don't want to see it go away. All right, let's take our one last break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up with the history of fermentation and fermentation vessels right after this.
Ken Grossman of Sierra Nevada Brewing Company says making great beer is hard. Making the same great beer every day is harder. Brewers Publications announces its latest release for breweries of any type and size. Quality Management, an essential guide for brewers by Mary Pelletieri. Proper quality management for small, regional, and national breweries is critical. Whether you are an established business or brand new, learn the best ways to create and manage a quality system in your brewery. This book will guide you in developing a comprehensive program that will grow with your brewery, help ensure quality processes in the brewery, and continue providing great beer for your fans. Quality management for breweries is critical for continued success. This guidebook teaches you to integrate quality management in every level of the operation. It will guide you in developing a comprehensive program to ensure quality processes in your brewery. Quality Management, an essential guide for brewers, now available from Brewers Publications. Learn more at brewerspublications.com. Your support of the Brewing Network means everything to us. We couldn't produce shows without you. And we love giving you something extra for that support, like Brew Your Own magazine. You already know it's a great brewing magazine full of recipes, equipment how-tos, discussions of beer styles, and brewing techniques. Whether you're new to brewing and just starting out or you're an old pro, you'll always learn something from the articles in Brew Your Own. Plus, there are amazing special issues like plans for building a Brutus 10 system, 250 classic clone recipes, and the Homebrewer's Answer Book. Brew Your Own magazine and BYO.com are awesome resources for any brewer, whether for yourself or as a gift. When you subscribe or resubscribe from the Brewing Network homepage, you directly support programs like this. Get a great magazine and support the Brewing Network. Subscribe to Brew Your Own right from thebrewingnetwork.com.
Say hello to my little friend.
You've heard about White Labs Pure Pitch Yeast. Pure Pitch is yeast grown right in its final packaging. That means yeast that has never been exposed to the environment. And White Labs Pure Pitch Yeast for homebrewers is now available to everyone at homebrew retailers nationwide. Easy to use, perfectly sized, and ready to pitch. White Labs yeast, packaged using their Flex Cell process, ensures the purest yeast on the market. Visit whitelabs.com to learn more about Pure Pitch, Flex Cell technology, and how it's created. Then visit a homebrew retailer near you for your own perfectly sized package of Pure Pitch yeast. And you can say hello to your own little friend. www.whitelabs.com.
That's it. I've had it. I am never putting hops in my beer again.
What? Why?
It's just too ridiculous. Insane prices, stupid contracts, high shipping costs, crappy selection.
Dude, you need Nico Brew.
Nico Brew will rock your f***ing face right the f*** off your f***ing skull. $5 shipping to all 50 states. Plus fantastic international rates get you low prices on Nico Brew's great selection of hops and more. Whether you're a home brewer, a pro brewer, or a homebrew shop owner, Nico Brew can get you the hops you need in increments big and small, single orders, spot buys, or full contracts. And there's only one place to join the uber special secret elite bare bones club where you'll get the best deals anywhere.
Holy shit.
NicoBrew.com. NIKOBREW. Nico Brew, your bare bones buddy in the brewing business.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right. All these you viewing the video, see my mean fly swatting skills. Of course.
What are you hitting it with?
It rolled up your show outline. Rolled up. The flies, very similar to the people of Concord, slow and dim-witted, easily outsmarted by a moving piece of paper.
Easily hit upside the head.
Yes. Now that last one, he's still stuck to the glass. So, well, I'm just gonna leave it there so we can see how long it takes Bevo to notice that.
That's what I was thinking.
Right at eye level. That's what she gets for not being here. All right. So, any last thoughts on fermentation history? I mean, where do you think fermentation technology is going, John? I mean, do you have any insight into that?
Well, I think it's the technology of the fermenters, I think, combines with our better understanding of yeast and biological life of yeast and how they ferment. It really allows us to produce better beer in a shorter period of time than we ever been able to before. Mm-hmm. That's my thought on it. And so I don't see us going to single day fermentations anywhere in the near future, but certainly I think the technology is going to allow us to keep producing higher volumes and higher quality of beer going forward.
But some would argue that the quality is less because, again, the beer's too clean and, maybe you want
and
some
maybe
of that
that's
funk in
maybe
there.
that's where going back to open fermentation allows us to bring forth that complexity in, more controlled, more consistent ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's going to depend on brewers and consumers. Really determining what it is that they want and what they want to see happen. But I'd love to get my hands on some used traditional British fermentation vessels and see if I could bring them back to the U.S. and set them up here.
We could be initiating the next trend in craft brewing right here, open fermentation.
Yeah.
Shift away from sours and IPAs, barrel aged to
Yorkshire
open fermentation.
Hey, you got a line on any Slate farms? That would be awesome. All right.
There's got to be some in northern Wisconsin.
Got to be some somewhere. So I'm sure there's some slate cutter that listens to the show. Got any stone cutters out there that whack me off a few squares of slate?
I really just want to cut that out and just save it.
It's very similar to snap me off a fresh piece. All right. Great show. Very interesting history of fermentation and some of the reasoning behind it, the changes. Very interesting. All right. If you're listening live, stay tuned. We've got some live Q&A coming up. We're going to do, I think, kind of the potpourri on the next one, or we also have one on yeast coming up. We're going to do 3 shows tonight. Woo!
We're in for the long haul.
Okay, that's right. Well, you know who's in for the long haul? Our good friend Blickman, John Blickman at BlickmanEngineering.com. Check him out. He's sponsoring the show, so you don't have to pay for it. You go to BlickmanEngineering.com, tell him how much you love the show, and appreciate the fact that he's paying for it. And check out the Brewing Network store while you're at it. Lots of goodies in there. You buy yourself some hats, glassware, condoms, you name it. And they will ship it out to you, and everything you buy from the Brewing Network store goes to the bottom line of the Brewing Network, helps keep shows like this on the air. Till then, everybody, brew strong.
Brew strong, everyone.